Hey there, dreamers. Welcome to Dreams Speak English. In every video, we explore stories that bring English to life. Today's journey takes us into the Cliffside Road by the sea. Let's get started. Part 1. The road begins at twilight. The evening settles over the coastline like a soft blanket. You stand at the beginning of a narrow road that curves along the edge of tall cliffs, and below, the ocean breathes in its ancient rhythm. The last traces of sunset have faded into deep blue, and now the stars begin their quiet appearance, one by one, in the darkening sky above. This road stretches ahead of you, following the natural contours of the land. Engineers who built these coastal roads centuries ago worked with the landscape rather than against it. They understood that the cliffs had their own wisdom, their own stability. The road bends where the rock is strongest, dips where valleys meet the sea, and rises where the headlands push out into the water. Each curve tells a story of patience and respect for the natural world. The air carries that distinctive scent of the ocean, salt mixed with seaweed, with minerals released from rocks below. Scientists have studied this smell, breaking it down into compounds with names like dimethyl sulfide, released by phytoplankton and algae in the water. But knowing the chemistry does nothing to diminish the magic. Your brain recognizes this scent immediately, associates it with vastness and freedom, with the edge of the known world. As you begin walking along this road, you notice how the sound of the waves reaches you even up here on the clifftop. The ocean sends its voice upward, a constant whisper that seems to come from everywhere at once. Researchers have discovered something remarkable about these ocean sounds. The rhythmic pattern of waves follows what scientists call pink noise, a sound frequency that contains all the pitches we can hear, but with more power in the lower frequencies. Pink noise differs from white noise because it feels warmer, gentler to human ears. The waves create this naturally. Your brain responds to pink noise by slowing down its own rhythms. When you listen to ocean waves, your brain waves begin to match the steady, repetitive pattern. The constant sound masks other noises that might startle you awake, while the rhythm encourages your neurons to synchronize in slower patterns associated with deep relaxation and sleep. Ancient humans who lived by the sea discovered this effect without any scientific instruments. They simply knew that the sound of waves brought peace. The road ahead remains empty of traffic. Few people drive these coastal routes at night. Those who do seek exactly what you seek: solitude, beauty, and the strange comfort that comes from being near the eternal ocean. The asphalt reflects moonlight in patches, creating a path of silver and shadow that guides you forward. Cliffs like these formed over millions of years. The rock face beside you contains layers, each one representing a different age of the Earth. Geologists can read these layers like pages in a book. Some layers contain tiny fossils of creatures that lived when this land lay beneath warm, shallow seas. Other layers show volcanic activity, ancient rivers, or periods when glaciers covered everything. The cliffs remember everything, holding the planet's history in compressed stone. The particular formation of sea cliffs depends on the type of rock and the force of the waves below. Softer rocks erode more quickly, creating caves and arches and eventually leaving behind sea stacks, those lonely pillars of rock standing isolated in the water. Harder rocks resist longer, forming the tall, dramatic cliffs that make these coastlines so striking. The battle between rock and water continues every day, every hour, every moment. The ocean wins eventually, but the contest takes place over such vast time scales that to human eyes, these cliffs seem permanent and unchanging. You pause for a moment and look down at the water below. The moonlight catches the crests of waves, turning them silver. Between the waves, the darker water holds depth and mystery. The ocean at night becomes something different from the ocean by day. Sailors throughout history have spoken of this transformation. By daylight, the sea shows its colors: blue, green, gray, turquoise depending on the weather and the angle of the sun. But at night, the ocean becomes black, silver, and countless shades in between. The surface reflects the moon and stars, making it seem like you could walk across the sky itself. The Greeks called the ocean Okeanos and believed it was a river that circled the entire world. They weren't completely wrong. The ocean does connect all lands, does flow in great currents that circle the globe. But they couldn't have imagined the true size of it. More than 70% of Earth's surface lies beneath saltwater. The ocean contains about 1.335 billion cubic kilometers of water. If you could spread that water evenly across Earth's entire surface, it would create a layer more than 2,600 meters deep everywhere. Walking further along the road, you begin to notice the patterns of the waves below. They arrive in sets, groups of larger waves followed by smaller ones. Sailors and surfers learn to count these sets, to predict when the big waves will come. The patterns form far out at sea, sometimes thousands of kilometers away. Storms generate waves that travel across entire oceans, carrying energy from distant winds. By the time they reach this coast, the storm that created them may have ended days ago. The science of waves fascinates oceanographers. Each wave represents energy moving through water, but the water itself barely moves. Think of a rope tied to a post. If you shake one end, a wave travels down the rope, but the rope stays in place. Ocean waves work similarly. The water particles move in small circles as the wave passes through, then return almost to where they started. The energy moves, the water stays. Only when waves reach shallow water near the shore does the water itself tumble forward in the white foam of breaking surf. The rhythm of waves arriving on a beach follows patterns mathematicians can describe with equations, yet it never feels mechanical or cold. Each wave differs slightly from the one before. The interval between waves varies. The height changes. The place where foam spreads up the sand shifts with each arrival. This combination of pattern and variation creates the hypnotic quality of watching the sea. Your mind can't quite predict what will happen next, so it stays engaged, but the changes occur within such a regular framework that prediction isn't necessary. You can relax into the rhythm without anxiety. The road curves around a headland, and suddenly the view opens up. You can see far along the coast now, watch the cliffs stepping back into the distance, one after another, each a bit hazier than the last. The moon hangs lower in the sky now, full and bright. Its light creates a silver path across the water, a shimmering road that seems to lead from the horizon directly to the base of these cliffs. Humans have always responded emotionally to moonlight on water. Ancient poets wrote about it in every culture. Japanese poets called it tsukimi, moon viewing, and considered it one of the most refined pleasures. Arab poets wove it into complex metaphors of longing and beauty. European poets saw in it everything from romance to melancholy. The moon itself affects the ocean in concrete, measurable ways. pulling at the water through gravity, creating the tides. But its light affects humans in ways harder to measure, stirring something deep in our psychology, connecting us to countless generations who watched this same phenomenon and felt its strange beauty. Part 2: The Lighthouse and the Tides. Further along the road, a lighthouse comes into view. It stands on a point of land that juts into the sea, its white tower rising against the dark sky. The light at the top rotates slowly, sending its beams sweeping across the water in a regular rhythm. Flash, pause, flash, pause. Each lighthouse has its own pattern, its own signature rhythm, so sailors can identify which lighthouse they're seeing even from far away. Lighthouses represent human care made visible. Someone built this tower, knowing that ships would pass this dangerous coast in darkness and fog. Someone tends the light even now, though modern lighthouses run automatically. The beam that sweeps across the water tonight carries a simple message. Here are the rocks, here is the land, keep to safe water. For hundreds of years, lighthouse keepers lived isolated lives in these towers, maintaining the light that saved unknown sailors whom they would never meet. The first lighthouse that historians know about stood at Alexandria in Egypt, completed around 280 BC. The Pharos of Alexandria rose to perhaps 100 meters tall, one of the tallest structures in the ancient world. A fire burned at its top every night, and mirrors reflected the light out to sea. Sailors could see it from nearly 50 kilometers away. That lighthouse stood for over 1,500 years before earthquakes finally destroyed it. But the idea spread. Wherever ships sailed, wherever coasts proved dangerous, humans built lights to guide each other home. The lighthouse beam sweeps past you, illuminating the road for a moment before moving on. In that brief flash of light, you see more details of the landscape, the texture of the rock walls, the line where the road meets the cliff edge, the sturdy barrier that prevents cars from driving over. Then darkness returns, comfortable and complete. The rhythm of the lighthouse creates another pattern to notice, another gentle metronome counting time in the night. Combined with the rhythm of the waves, it forms a complex but soothing soundscape. Your brain processes these overlapping rhythms without effort, finding them calming rather than confusing. Multiple regular patterns actually help the mind settle into relaxation, as long as none of them feel threatening or demanding. This coastline experiences 2 high tides and 2 low tides every day. The tides follow the moon's position in the sky, pulled by lunar gravity. When the moon sits directly overhead, the ocean beneath it rises. But something seemingly paradoxical happens too. The ocean on the opposite side of Earth also rises, creating a second high tide. This occurs because Earth and Moon actually orbit around their common center of gravity, and this motion creates a second tidal bulge on Earth's far side. The Sun also pulls at Earth's oceans, though with less force than the Moon because of its greater distance. When Sun, Moon, and Earth align during new moons and full moons, their gravitational pulls combine, creating especially high tides called spring tides. When the Sun and Moon pull at right angles to each other during quarter moons, their effects partly cancel out, creating gentler neap tides. This eternal dance of celestial bodies shows itself in the daily rise and fall of water against every coast on Earth. Tide pools form in rocky shores during low tide, creating small worlds isolated from the sea. Each pool becomes a temporary home for creatures adapted to this harsh, changeable environment. Starfish cling to rocks, their tube feet holding them in place. Sea anemones wait for the water to return, their tentacles retracted. Small fish dart between crevices. Crabs scuttle sideways across the bottom. These pools represent some of the most biologically productive ecosystems on Earth, packed with life adapted to survive both underwater and exposed to air, salt, sun, and rain. Indigenous peoples along coastlines everywhere developed sophisticated knowledge of the tides. They knew which beaches to visit at which times to gather clams, mussels, and seaweed. They knew when fish would move into shallow waters. They understood how tide times shifted through the month. This knowledge, passed down through generations, allowed communities to thrive on the resources the ocean provided twice daily. Western science eventually developed mathematical models to predict tides, publishing tide tables for ports worldwide. But the underlying wisdom, that the ocean breathes in and out according to the moon, was understood long before any equations existed. Walking beside the ocean at night connects you to all of human history. Every culture that lived near a coast developed relationships with the sea. They created boats, learned to navigate, discovered which fish they could catch and which seasons brought different creatures to their shores. They told stories about the sea, made gods and goddesses to represent its power, created songs and poems and paintings trying to capture its moods. The sea in folklore takes many forms. Sometimes it appears as a capricious deity demanding sacrifice. Sometimes it offers treasure to those brave enough to seek it. Sometimes it hides magical kingdoms beneath the waves, populated by mermaids, selkies, and other beings half human and half something else. The ocean's vastness invited imagination. Sailors who ventured far from shore encountered phenomena they couldn't explain. Strange lights in the water, enormous creatures rising from the depths, currents that pulled ships off course. These experiences became stories, and stories became myths. Celtic legends spoke of Tir na Nog, a paradise beyond the western sea where people never aged. Greek myths placed the realm of the dead beyond the ocean's edge. Japanese stories told of Ryugujo, an undersea palace ruled by a dragon god. Pacific Islander navigation legends wove together practical knowledge with spiritual belief, describing the ocean as a network of pathways known to initiated navigators who could read the stars, the waves, and the behavior of birds. The truth about the ocean proves as remarkable as any myth. Beneath the surface you see from this cliffside road lies a world as alien as another planet. The deepest parts of the ocean descend nearly 11,000 meters below sea level, deeper than Mount Everest is tall. At those depths, the pressure would crush a human instantly. No sunlight penetrates below about 1,000 meters, yet life thrives even in the absolute darkness of the deep ocean floor. Creatures there have evolved bioluminescence, making their own light through chemical reactions in their bodies. Some deep-sea fish look monstrous by surface standards, perfectly adapted to a world we're only beginning to explore. Scientists estimate that we've explored less than 5% of the ocean. We have better maps of the moon's surface than of Earth's ocean floor. New species are discovered regularly in the deep sea. Some of these creatures seem to defy basic rules of biology. Giant tube worms living near volcanic vents that spew toxic chemicals, octopuses that can regenerate lost arms, fish that survive being frozen solid. The ocean regulates Earth's entire climate. Water absorbs heat from the sun, stores it, and distributes it around the planet through currents. The Gulf Stream carries warm water from the Caribbean toward Europe, making the climate there much milder than it would otherwise be at those northern latitudes. The Humboldt Current brings cold water up along the coast of South America, creating rich fishing grounds and influencing weather patterns across the Pacific. Without the ocean's constant circulation, Earth's temperature extremes would make much of the planet uninhabitable. Part 3: Science, Sound, and Sleep. The ocean also produces much of the oxygen we breathe. Most people think of forests as Earth's lungs, and forests do contribute significantly to oxygen production. But phytoplankton, microscopic organisms that live near the ocean's surface, produce at least 50% of atmospheric oxygen through photosynthesis. These tiny creatures, invisible individually but present in trillions, sustain all air-breathing life on Earth. When you take a breath here on this clifftop road, half of that breath comes from the ocean. The sound of waves you hear from this road carries across the night air with particular clarity. Sound travels differently at night than during the day. During daylight, the sun heats the air near the ground, creating temperature layers. These layers can refract sound waves, bending them upward away from the ground. But at night, cooler air near the surface creates different temperature gradients that allow sound to travel further horizontally. This acoustic effect means you can hear the ocean from greater distances after dark. But the quality of the sound also matters for sleep and relaxation. Researchers studying sleep environments have identified several characteristics of sounds that promote rest. The sound needs to be constant enough to mask sudden noises that might startle someone awake, like a car horn or a slamming door. But it also needs gentle variation so the brain doesn't tune it out completely. Ocean waves provide exactly this balance. The rhythm remains steady but never perfectly identical. Each wave creates a slightly different sound as it breaks, rolls up the beach, and retreats. Your brain engages just enough to follow the pattern, but not so much that it needs to stay alert. Studies have measured brain activity in people falling asleep while listening to ocean sounds. The presence of these sounds correlates with faster sleep onset, more time spent in deep sleep stages, and fewer awakenings during the night. The effect seems particularly strong for people who experience anxiety or racing thoughts at bedtime. The waves provide something external to focus on, breaking the cycle of repetitive worries. The mechanism involves several brain systems working together. The auditory cortex processes the sound itself. The amygdala, the brain's fear and stress center, responds to the regularity and lack of threat by decreasing its activity. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and worrying, has less work to do when attention shifts to the simple, present-moment experience of listening. Meanwhile, the brain's default mode network, which generates self-referential thoughts, becomes less active. The overall effect creates conditions ideal for sleep: reduced anxiety, decreased mental activity, and increased relaxation. Ancient physicians understood the calming effect of water sounds without knowing the neuroscience behind it. Greek and Roman doctors prescribed time at coastal spas for various ailments. Arab physicians in medieval times recommended the sound of fountains for insomnia. Traditional Chinese medicine included listening to natural water among its therapeutic techniques. These practices, passed down through centuries, worked because they aligned with how human brains function, even though the practitioners couldn't explain the mechanisms. The road continues to curve along the coastline, and you notice how your breathing has slowed to match the rhythm of the waves. This synchronization happens automatically. Humans are natural mimics. We match the emotional states of people around us, synchronize our footsteps when walking with someone, and unconsciously mirror the breathing patterns of rhythmic sounds we hear. When the sound follows a slow, regular pattern like waves on a shore, our breathing slows to match. Slow breathing triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of your nervous system responsible for rest and digestion. Heart rate decreases. Blood pressure drops slightly. Muscles release tension. The ocean has played this role, providing calm, promoting rest, for humans as long as our species has existed. Our ancestors evolved on the coasts of Africa, living where land met sea. Those early humans gathered shellfish from the shallows, learned to fish, and built their communities along shores. The sound of waves accompanied human development from our very beginning. Perhaps this explains the deep sense of peace many people feel at the ocean. The sound triggers something ancient in our psychology, a connection to home that predates cities, agriculture, or language itself. Looking out at the dark water now, you can see the waves as lines of white foam, one behind another, marching toward the shore below. The moonlight catches each crest at the moment before it breaks, creating a pattern of silver lines across the surface. The regularity mesmerizes. You could watch for hours and never see exactly the same configuration twice, yet the overall pattern remains constant. Mariners throughout history have developed deep, almost spiritual relationships with the sea. Sailors speak of the ocean as a living thing, with moods and temperament. They describe days when the sea feels welcoming and days when it seems hostile. Modern oceanography explains these moods in terms of wind patterns, pressure systems, and current flows. But the sailor's metaphor captures something true. The ocean does change constantly, does present different faces to those who travel on it. Treating the sea with respect, as a powerful force that deserves careful attention, kept sailors safe long before they understood the physics of storms and waves. The lighthouse beam sweeps past again, and this time you notice how far you've walked. The road has climbed slightly, following the contour of the cliffs upward. The drop to the water below seems steeper here, yet you feel no vertigo, no fear. The solid road remains beneath your feet. The barrier protects you from the edge. The endless rhythm of waves continues below. Everything feels safe, peaceful, suspended in this timeless moment between day and tomorrow. Part 4: Stories, Stars, and the Infinite Sea. The stars reflected on the ocean's surface create a double sky. Looking out over the water, you can't quite tell where the real stars end and their reflections begin. The dark water becomes a mirror, duplicating the constellations. Ancient navigators used these stars to cross vast distances of open ocean, steering by patterns that remained constant even as everything else changed. Polynesian voyagers perfected the art of celestial navigation, sailing thousands of kilometers across the Pacific without instruments, guided by stars, wave patterns, and the flight paths of birds. They memorized the positions of hundreds of stars, knew which ones rose and set at which locations, and could find islands scattered across the world's largest ocean using only their knowledge and observations. European explorers who encountered these navigators in the 18th century could barely believe such precise navigation was possible without compasses or charts. But Polynesian methods worked perfectly. After all, They had settled nearly every habitable island in the Pacific, a feat of exploration unmatched by any other culture. The sea routes they pioneered connected islands separated by enormous distances of empty ocean. Samoa to Hawaii spans roughly 4,000 kilometers of open water, yet Polynesians made that voyage in double-hulled canoes, carrying everything needed to establish new communities. They brought plants, animals, tools, and knowledge, settling new islands and maintaining contact across their far-flung civilization. The Pacific Ocean, which European maps labeled as empty space, was actually a network of pathways, a connected world of seafaring peoples. These navigators had to understand the ocean intimately. They recognized different types of swells and where they came from. They knew how waves bent around islands, creating patterns that revealed land beyond the horizon. They watched birds. Certain species flew out to fish during the day but returned to land at night, so seeing these birds in late afternoon meant an island lay in the direction they were heading. They looked at the color of the water, the formation of clouds, the presence of floating debris. Every detail told them something about where they were and where they were going. The stars themselves have always inspired human imagination. Those points of light in the darkness provoked questions about our place in the universe. Different cultures connected the stars into different constellations, seeing their own stories written across the sky. The Greeks saw heroes and monsters. Chinese astronomers saw emperors and celestial palaces. Aboriginal Australians saw the stories of creation and the paths their ancestors walked. Each culture looked at the same stars but found different meanings, different patterns, different truths. The ocean and the sky together create a sense of vastness that can feel either terrifying or liberating. Standing on this clifftop road, looking out over the dark water to the horizon where sea and sky merge, you touch infinity. The ocean stretches away to the curve of the earth. The stars extend outward for distances the human mind can't truly comprehend. Between them, you stand, a single point of consciousness, momentarily aware of these immensities. This awareness has a strange effect. You might expect it to make you feel insignificant, and perhaps it does. But it also provides relief. The worries that seemed so large during the day shrink in comparison to the ocean's vastness. The problems that occupied your thoughts lose their urgency. The ocean has been here for hundreds of millions of years. The stars have shone for billions of years. Your troubles, real as they feel, become smaller against this backdrop. Not unimportant, your life matters, your concerns are valid, but not all-consuming either. The universe is large enough to hold both your worries and your peace. Philosophers throughout history have contemplated the sea and reached various conclusions. Some saw in it the chaos from which order emerged. Others saw proof of divine creation. Some found it a metaphor for the unconscious mind, with its hidden depths and unpredictable storms. Others viewed it as a reminder of nature's power and humanity's small place in the natural order. The ocean accommodated all these interpretations without changing. It simply continued its eternal rhythms, indifferent to human philosophy, yet somehow answering deep human needs for meaning and connection to something larger than ourselves. The road ahead disappears into darkness, though you can see it continuing as a vague line against the slightly lighter sky. You could walk for hours more following this coastline, and the scene would remain essentially the same: cliffs, ocean, moonlight, stars, waves. The repetition doesn't bore but instead comforts. The world feels reliable here. The patterns you've come to expect continue. Nothing demands your attention or requires your response. You can simply be present, walking slowly, breathing the salt air, listening to the waves. Coastal roads like this one exist around the world. The Pacific Coast Highway in California curves along cliffs overlooking the ocean. The Great Ocean Road in Australia provides stunning views of the Southern Ocean. The Atlantic Road in Norway leaps between small islands on a series of bridges. The Amalfi Coast in Italy clings to mountainsides above the Mediterranean. Each of these roads offers travelers the chance to experience the meeting place of land and sea, to witness the beauty and power of coastlines shaped by millions of years of waves. People drive these roads seeking beauty, but they find something else too: perspective. The ocean reminds us that we're part of something vast and ongoing. The roads themselves, engineering marvels of human capability, show what we can accomplish when we work with patience and care. Together, road and ocean create a space for contemplation, for the kind of thinking that happens when the usual distractions fall away and only the essential remains. The sound of waves has become so constant now that you barely notice it consciously. It forms the background to every thought, every breath. This is exactly how calming sounds work best, not demanding attention but providing a gentle foundation, a sonic floor that supports everything else. Your mind can rest on this foundation without fear of falling into anxiety or worry. The waves will continue. The ocean will remain. These facts become certainties you can rely on. Scientists who study happiness and well-being have found that experiences of awe, moments when we encounter something vast that we can't immediately comprehend, have lasting positive effects. People who regularly experience or report greater life satisfaction, more generosity, and increased feelings of connection to others. The ocean provides awe in abundance. Its size alone overwhelms human scale. Its age makes our lifespan seem like brief flickers. Its power humbles any sense of human dominance. Yet encountering the ocean doesn't frighten most people. Instead, it opens something inside, creates a space for wonder. This combination, awe at the vastness, peace from the rhythmic sounds, beauty in the moonlight and waves, creates ideal conditions for rest. Your body and mind receive messages of safety from multiple sources. The regular rhythm signals that nothing threatening is happening. The predictable pattern means no surprises await. The beauty satisfies something in your aesthetic sense, creating contentment. All these factors together guide you toward sleep, toward that state where consciousness releases its hold and allows the deeper processes of rest and restoration to take over. The lighthouse beam sweeps past once more, and you realize how many times you've seen it now. Flash, pause, pause. The rhythm has become familiar, expected, part of the night's pattern. This familiarity breeds comfort. The lighthouse keeper, whoever tends this light, has created reliability in the darkness. The beam will continue through the night, sweeping across the water every few seconds, warning ships, guiding sailors, keeping watch while others sleep. Your walk along this cliffside road could continue indefinitely. The coast stretches on, mile after mile, offering the same peaceful views, the same calming sounds. But every journey has a natural pace, and perhaps it's time to let the walking fade, to let the road continue without you, to simply rest here in this moment where the land meets the sea. The waves below will roll through the night, arriving on the shore in their endless succession. The moon will trace its arc across the sky, pulling the tides, illuminating the water. The stars will wheel overhead, marking time on a cosmic scale. And the ocean will breathe its slow, deep breaths, as it has since long before humans walked the earth, as it will long after. You are here now, in this moment, beside this ancient ocean, under this particular configuration of stars. The uniqueness of this moment doesn't make it precious in a desperate way. There will be other nights, other waves, other walks along other shores. But this moment, right now, holds everything you need. Peace exists in the sound of waves. Beauty lives in moonlight on water. Home can be found wherever you stand, and truly notice where you are. Let the ocean's rhythm slow your thoughts. Let the darkness embrace you gently. Let the vastness of sea and sky remind you that you're held by something larger, something that has cradled billions of lives and will cradle billions more. You are safe. You are exactly where you need to be. Rest now. The ocean keeps watch. The waves continue their ancient song. And you, dear traveler, can finally, completely rest. Thank you for walking this cliffside road with me tonight. If you found peace in this journey, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe for more nighttime stories. Leave a comment telling me which calm places you'd like to explore next. Perhaps mountain trails under stars, or quiet forest paths, or gentle rain on distant islands. Sleep well, friend.